Hello, and welcome to another episode of Do What You Love, strategies to unlock your creativity to live a more creative and fulfilling life. Today, we are talking about thriving through change and achieving your dreams with my special guest, Tiffany Lanier. Tiffany is a dynamic keynote speaker, facilitator, and expert in personal growth, change, and well-being. As the founder of The Morning Shift, she works with organizations to help their teams move through disruptive seasons of change and reestablish their clarity, focus, and resiliency by creating intentional and one-of-a-kind personal growth and well-being experiences. Tiffany has helped thousands of leaders all over the world rediscover who they are. I love that. Rediscover who they are, what they stand for, and what matters most so they can shift to their highest potential and possibilities. So who wouldn't want that? Tiffany, I am so excited to chat with you today.
I am so happy to be here and be with you, Kate. It's been so long.
I know. Tiffany and I have known each other for a while, but like so many of us, we kind of stay connected via social media and see what's going on. But we haven't been in the same room in a while. That is for sure.
It's been too long. It's absurd.
It is. I know. We're like right down the street from each other.
It's absurd. We'll blame the pandemic and all the things. Like it's just been a wild couple of years, but we're gonna get it back together.
We're gonna get it back together. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Seriously, talk about change and transformation. It's like we're always in a state of transition, right? Like we're
Always.
never not going through change.
Always. And I think that's always like the funny, ironic, tricky thing about change is that we're constantly experiencing it and we're always waiting to get to the other side. But as soon as we like get to the other side of whatever that thing is, something new is on the horizon.
I
So
know. I know. And we had to remind ourselves, wait a second, we were on the other side of this. Now we're on the other side. But there's this whole other journey to get through.
it's a cycle. It's a
It's a
cycle.
cycle. It's a
Yes.
cycle.
Mm.
So why don't we start with in 30 seconds or less, how would you describe what you do?
30 seconds. Okay. I look at myself now as like a change artist,
Ooh.
shift maker, activator, and I do all of this through keynote speaking, facilitating, really holding space for people to be and become and what that looks like as we move through seasons of change. And so it's taken on different methodologies, not different methodologies, but different modalities, I would say, over the years as I've gotten deeper and deeper into my work.
Beautiful. I love that. I love the artistry part of it. It's like combining business and art
I'm
together.
really owning that there is an art to so much that we do. And for me, I think I've always, someone recently asked me, like, what did you want to be when, you were a child? And what did you used to write on those whenever the teacher would ask us? And I used to say I wanted to be an artist. And though the art at the time, I was just drawing sketches of like my family and things all the time, and I would paint here and there, but like those types of arts never, turned into anything concrete. But I then went on to pursue music and musical theater. And so that became my art form when I was like in middle school and high school. And then I got hurt. And so I have like a foot and ankle situation that's been going on for almost 20 years now. And that stopped me from dancing very prematurely. And so in college, I was really trying to find like, what is my art now? Like now that like the dancing was so closely related to the singing that I even stopped singing because I felt like I wasn't this whole part of me no longer could exist. And I really struggled through like having a disability at a very young age that that just kind of came out of nowhere. And I had to refine like or redefine what does art mean to me and how do I plan to use it and what is that going to be now and what shape is it going to take form. And I discovered public speaking, and public speaking became my art form once I got to college, and I'm
Mm.
like, "Ooh, it puts me back on the stage, and I love it up here." And, I can now bring these different elements of myself to this newfound place. And so, now then you fast forward some years, and then just most recently, I don't know. I was just like, I think I am an artist. Like not in the way that maybe people look at it, but I do feel very, very artistic in all that I bring to my work. So I'm just claiming that now.
Yes, claim it. We are all artists. In fact, in the back of my book, I have a poem called "We Are All Artists." Like
Yes.
every one of us is an artist, and I love that you talked about redefining yourself because I think as we get older and develop in our careers and where we see ourselves and where we want to go, it's so easy for us to disconnect from those creative pursuits and some of the things that we really found a lot of joy in, like singing, dancing, photography. I know that there's some people used to be in a band, right? Like
Mhm.
and then life. You get married, you have kids, you
Life
have
lives.
job and responsibilities, and like you're doing all the things, and we forget about that part of creativity. And I think for some, it kind of easily we can easily intertwine it into some of the work that we do, like public speaking is as a fun way to be able to kind of bring your creativity. But some leaders that maybe they feel like, I'm an attorney or I'm a dentist or whatever it is, and they have these creative pursuits. So when you're talking to the leaders that you work with, what are some of the challenges that come up for them? And are you finding that people have kind of lost that creative side to themselves?
I think a lot of the time, as we adult, as we continue down the path of
Adulting.
adulthood, um, we tend to take ourselves so seriously. Like everything is so serious all the time. And you almost if you don't define yourself as a artistic creative person, then you I think decide that that is like not in your wheelhouse. So I am in a more left brain, career path, and like creativeness may not go in or weave into my work in that way. But that doesn't mean that I can't be creative in some way on in the outside world. But when I'm talking to people, I find that it's mostly allowing yourself to connect to other parts of you, and letting those other parts of you shine through. I recently got a book called Parts. I haven't even started reading it, but I got it because it was so interesting to me because it talks about these different parts of us and the parts of us that make up this whole. Because we say it all the time, like a part of me feels XYZ, right? A part of me feels this way. And so like we're made up of all these different pieces of ourselves, and we're always looking or trying to integrate them as much as humanly possible because I totally believe that that's what makes us feel most whole when we're able to bring the many parts of who we are together and then show up in life in that fullness. And at times when we're trying to kind of silo those parts of us to show up for the work or for something else that we have that doesn't feel like it's most aligned with those parts, we try to play to those roles. And so, something that I've personally done that I definitely advocate for is finding the parts of us that can weave into this through line that we're creating for everyone to know us by, or whatever that may look like. My husband is super left brain, lawyer, like into the charts and the numbers of everything that I'm not, that I'm totally the opposite of. And recently, like in this last year, he started creating candles. Like we started a candle company, and he was like the master behind the candles. Like everyone thought it was me, but I'm like, actually no, it's him. Like from the creation of the vessels to all of it, it's him. And though, because it also includes a lot of math and science behind it, but he was able to spark some level of creativity by doing something that was also in alignment with who he is to the fullest. Same thing with like woodworking. So he finds like other ways to be creative, but it also ties more into like the math and sciences. And so it fuses, these parts of him together that may not look like my type of creativity.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so awesome. And that's the thing is I feel like there's there's that in every single person, We just have to rediscover what that is and what that looks like, and some of those things that really brought so much joy to our lives. So I'm so happy that you guys get to do it together, which is
Yeah.
kind of like a little added bonus.
Yeah.
Um, so when you're working with leaders, can we run through an actual, like, if someone's listening right now and they're thinking, all right, this all sounds really good, but I still don't really think I'm creative. I don't see myself in that way. I don't really know what I find interesting these days. Like, and what are some of the tools or strategies that you use when you're on stage and speaking, or when you're doing these workshops with people, that someone can do today to kind of spark that creativity, or really rediscover, as you say, like rediscover who they are as a leader?
Yeah. So through my company, the morning shift, we focus. So it's like morning focused initiatives. So I call it like morning space. And through morning space, there's me speaking and talking for the subject matter at hand, but also meditation and breath work and reflection and group chat, and there's a lot going on so that you literally connect to different parts of you, different parts of your brain, different parts of your body. All of these things are being sparked so that you build a deeper connection to yourself in the midst of adulting. We do lose aspects of ourselves as we become parents, as we become partners with other folks, as we define a career path for ourselves, as life begins to become very full in all the many ways that it is full. We can also be very tired in the pursuits of its fullness, and not necessarily in ways that drive our well being or our creative nature. And so I find that there is this disconnect that we have with ourselves, right? We are like disconnected from these parts of us, these pieces of us. And what I look to do when I'm working with leaders and individuals is bridge that gap, is to rediscover who I am for this particular season of change, this particular time in my life, where I see myself right now, but also where I see myself moving into the future, and try to start merging these pieces together. And that takes time, and that takes lots of reflection work, lots of introspection work, and really gaining more and more clarity of who you are in the past and the things that sparked joy and the things that you were creative in, if that was a pathway for you, where you are now, and where you look to become. And so these are like three different, parts of our timeline that we're trying to merge as quickly as humanly possible so that we can experience that change and experience that pleasure of that change in real time. And so what I tell people is that there is a deep level of reflection. You have to analyze, how did we get here? Like, how did I get to this moment? How have I allowed either these pieces of me to pass away or didn't bring to the forefront? Or what has led me to an identity shift that I wasn't even aware that I have, embarked upon? Like for me, that was motherhood, was a shaking of sorts that led to a bunch of other things, but I had to get over I had to get over this part of me that felt like it died, honestly. My energy died, like, which also leads to creativity. Like when I just had this conversation, I feel like yesterday or sometime this week with someone. No, I was moderating a panel and we were talking about motherhood. And I realized now that I have two children that my like creative brain and juices actually like are on pause, like on ice for about 2.5 years. Like it takes almost 2.5 years for me to feel like myself again, and where like things are like jiving and moving, and I'm like, oh snap, she's back. And I'm able to produce at a higher level than I am during that about 2 and a year time frame. That just is not the same as when I'm like 100% on. And we don't always account for those things. That's why I talk about change so much, because we don't always account for the seasons of our life that create a dissonance and a disruption that may cause that change in our ability to even be creative. And that's from a brain perspective and a bodily perspective that we don't always take into consideration. So for me, it's helping people not only navigate through these seasons of change through deep reflection, introspection work, different well being and wellness modalities, but being able to see what that looks like and allow yourself to move through that particular season in order to get to the other side of what it is that you want and need.
So I feel like that's a lot. Like there's a lot going on in there. That's a lot of introspection. That's a lot of, and I think we can get really stuck in our heads, right? We're thinking about our
Mhm.
past, our present, our future, where we're going, all the things. And
And that's
one
why
of the
being
ways,
in the body is really important and not always in your head.
yes. So what is something that someone can do right now immediately to get into a state? Because what I find so interesting is how many of us are in this state today of overwhelm, of feeling anxious, of it's almost as though we're saying these things to ourselves. We're talking about how anxious we are. We're talking about how we're like the different ways that
The
we're
burnout
feeling.
is real.
And not that we shouldn't feel those feelings, but the more that we focus on that, instead of saying, I'm going to do this one thing that's going to get me out of my head, into my body, and into action. Like, what is what is one thing that we can do today to get
Yeah.
into that space?
See, that's always challenging because everyone's so different. And so what I would implore people to discover about themselves is what is one thing that either sparks joy or sparks creativity. So I'm a big proponent of like ritual. Like I love a good ritual of, and when I say ritual, I mean like a something that drives meaning that I can repeat like daily. So something that often helps me that I feel like I spoke about in another podcast was candle work. And candle work in the way in which it's simply as lighting the candle. And the lighting of the candle can signify a couple of things. It's not just ambiance and like that's really, or sparks a smell, but can spark the actual, when I light this candle, I'm going to do what? I'm going to sit in silence for 5 minutes and allow myself to just be here with me in this moment. This candle signifies that I'm going to write, right? I'm going to paint, I'm going to do something, but it's almost symbolic because it's literally lighting the flame in real time, but also that could be a signifier as lighting your own flame, right? So how we attach meaning to outside things is up to us. Like someone else lights a candle and they're like, it's just I lit the candle. But you can do that for yourself and not overthink it. I know as someone who feels like she's in perpetual writer's block, um, I have to create those types of spaces for myself constantly when I am needing to get something out and it doesn't feel like it's coming. But if there's no deadline, and depending on if, especially if you're an entrepreneur, we create all kinds of deadlines, that are arbitrary to some degree. And then we put a lot of pressure. And then if things don't come out the way that we want, then you start working on that negative self-talk. But if you do have room for pure creativity without a deadline or without some specific outcome that's attached to the moment, then you can use something like a candle or something like a sound or something that you see, draw meaning into it, and then do the thing that you've been like putting off to do the thing that allows you to get back into your body, into a movement, whether that's physical movement or even like the writing, right? The physical writing, and maybe not even the typing because we're so used to typing, but just allowing yourself to kind of freestyle in something to spark the creativity and do it for like 5 minutes. And don't
Yeah.
make it an all day thing. Don't make it a block of 90 minutes to 3 hours. Maybe just do it for the 5 minutes and allow yourself to get into like these states of flow that spark that creativity.
Yeah, it's reminding me of, have you read Twyla Tharp's book, The Creative Habit?
Yes.
Of course you have,
My favorite and one
because
that
you're
I
a
share all the
dancer.
time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It reminds me of when she talks about in the book how her habit is actually not working out or dancing. It's getting in the cab. It's waking up at 5 in the morning
Right.
and getting in the cab. Like that is the habit of getting into the cab, knowing, hey, this is where I'm going to the gym. I'm going to work out and move my body. I'm going to do choreography. And I really loved that because it was this idea of that's easy to do. Like we can all light a candle. We can all, sit down to write. And that idea of having this habit that we can form, and whether that means your writing habit, your artistry habit, whatever it is that you're working on, or even for your business, right? There's tons of us that were like, oh, we don't want to do the thing, but we have to do the thing. And what happens so often is we end up pushing things off that really don't even take that long. They actually are so easy when we finally get to them, but we put them off for so long because in our minds we're making them this huge thing that is
Mhm.
going to take up all this time and it's going to be really challenging. It's such a mindset thing. um
It is, and that takes active work too.
of
That's like
course.
daily of putting yourself in the mindsets of where you want to be and like honing it like a muscle, right? And so it's a little bit of all those things, and that's why I'm so fascinated with morning routines and rituals, and not always in the hyper productive sense, but in the creating sustainable mental emotional change and how we show up for our lives and the work that we do.
Yeah, it's a work. We're always a work in progress. A work in
That's
progress.
it. And the faster we just accept that, the easier the resistance.
Yeah, that's right. We get to grow and learn and develop every single day. So you got to be on stage with the famous red carpet by doing a TED Talk. So can you share your experience of what that was like and just this idea? I know you said you are in a state of writer's block, but obviously you had to think of, okay, what am I going to say in this amount of time in an impactful way that TEDx is going to promote online? Like, what was that whole journey like?
Yeah, that was a journey. It wasn't so bad for me because I'm already a public speaker. I can see, individuals who don't do public speaking for like a living that it could be even more challenging. Um, but for me, it was just really deciding what the direction was, which is always the hardest part. Like I'm someone that can speak even on the same subject matter, I can break it down into a number of different ways. So deciding like what is this, how can I create the one message and then try to plant as many little messages as I can? And that's what I usually do. And so it was that process of elimination. I think coming up with the title was really was probably one of the most challenging. I like had like 15
Yeah.
different titles and then I kept and I still not sure that I chose the right title, but like that's something that you have to like think about from a marketing perspective that has nothing to even do with like the talk itself, but something that you have to keep in mind of how people read it and think what the message is going to be. But I had a lot of fun with it, between my own speaking coaches and the TEDx coaches, just being able to play with it. And for what I've been really getting into the last year or so in my speaking career is stage presence and physicality and that part of the storytelling, the nonverbal part of the storytelling. Has really been what I've been working on the most. And so that was a lot of pressure and then also a lot of fun when you learn to take off the pressure a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be fun, right? Like if we put a little bit more fun into the work that we're doing, then we show up a little differently.
It's true. And that's why I feel like when I think of the stage, I'm like, this is my playground now. Like y'all have entered my playground. And so how can I use my voice? How can I use my body? How can I use different parts of me to really show up dynamically in the message that I'm giving? And so it becomes far more like art and you get to play a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, we need more play. business and play, the art and science of business.
Yeah.
Um, you work with a lot of different people in a lot of different leadership roles, different corporations, companies, solopreneurs, kind of all over the place. What do you see as kind of a through line between what are they coming to you for? What are they challenged with, and what outcome are they looking to get?
Yeah. Primarily, especially if I'm speaking at certain conferences, it's the navigating of change. So, how we think about change, how can we move through change? And for me, I talk about change through the lens of well-being. So I tie these two together. So when people come to me, it's even if they don't know it, like some people are like, I like the well-being component and we want to talk more about that. How do we ensure that our people are well on the other side of the changes that they're either personally experiencing in the workplace are experiencing or that we're experiencing as a whole? Um, or they hire me specifically on speaking on navigating change, and I just like throw in the well-being piece for free because it is a part of it to me. They go hand in hand. I think a lot of the time when we're moving through change, we come at it from a chaotic place because it feels pretty chaotic. Like it's disruptive. It either comes out of nowhere or it's something that even if we initiate can still feel chaotic because we haven't either done it in a long time or we're new to it and we're trying to find our ground. And so not taking care of yourself in the process of that is a sure way to constantly feel like you're in this chaotic, ungrounded, not know what is actually happening to me type of space. And so honoring your well-being through that process is how you infuse a little more ease, a little more grace, and working through to get to the other side with a way of beingness that feels like you can breathe through it. And that is what's important to me, especially now. I used to also be the chaotic runner through change, and I've retired. I have retired from that state of being. It just doesn't serve me well.
Yeah, no, it doesn't serve anybody very well. All right. So, Tiffany, what is one activity that someone can do in 10 minutes or less to help them live a more creative and fulfilling life?
I'm like, people are not gonna always like me for this, but it's to meditate. For real, for real. And I say that people aren't gonna like because I feel like everyone's like, just meditate and everything is better. But partially because it's true. If you if you learn to like sit with yourself and allow the creativity to move through you and you show up for that because we're so in our heads. And I think even when we meditate, we're like in our heads about how we're meditating and is this working and am I doing it right? And like that's where we need to like release all of that mind chatter and just know you're putting yourself in position to like listen to this higher version of yourself because that's where a lot of the creativity lives. It's where a lot of the visions live. It's and so being able to connect to that part of you is a surefire way to be like, "Oh, wow, I just sparked a new idea that I wanna go actively pursue," or, "Ooh, I can totally write about this," or whatever it may be, but it is like I said about change, it's when we are in the thick of life and we're constantly moving through everything, we don't allow ourselves to like a breathe but also hear the many creative thoughts that we have because we're drowning it out with all this other stuff all the time. So I feel like listening, taking a moment to just listen to yourself, whether you call that meditation or just like being in place, will spark creativity times 100.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. It's one of those, we hear it all the time, and so many people say, "I can't
I
meditate. There's
know.
no
That's
way."
like the first that's why I was like, I don't know if I should give this advice because I feel like someone's gonna be like, I can't do it.
I can't.
But what I tell, folks that I work with, meditation, like, there's so many different types of meditation. And
Yes.
so it's not always like I'm one that sits on a meditation cushion. I'm that person, but you don't have to be that person. You can be meditating and moving, like meditation could also be if you are a painter. No, actually, if you're not a painter, because that then it becomes work. But like if you were to just like take a pen and a pad and just like squiggle, like just do something.
Doodle, just
Doodle.
doodle.
That's something that's not imperative for you to be like thinking through is a part of the process. Like that you're not
Yeah.
thinking so heavily about, that you're just in motion with, or able to just kind of like sit there and be, right? So it's putting yourself in a state of beingness versus I gotta sit on the meditation cushion and I gotta and I gotta like really have this like deep philosophical connection. Like if you can, awesome. If you can't, start with doodling or just
Yes.
walking meditation. Like you can wash dishes. Even when I'm washing dishes, I'm like in a meditation because I'm only like focused on like cleaning the dish. And so you can have active meditations too.
Yeah, that's what I do. For me, it's walking. I walk after my workouts in the morning and I go, and I'm fortunate I live right by the water. So I'm like walking along the water. It's quiet, it's calm. It's like the sun hasn't even come out yet. It's super early. That is like my time.
Yeah. And
And I
things come to
used to,
you.
yeah, because I used to fill that time with I have to be listening to an audiobook or a podcast or learning something or whatever. But now I'm like, no, like sometimes I'll have music on because I love music, but I also sometimes I'll just more lately, more often than not, it has been I don't even listen to anything. It's just in my head. I'm just like breathing. I even do breath work while I do it. I read that book by James Nestor, Breath, and now I
Mm,
do all these different like box breathing and these different like breathing modalities. So I'm like, this is like my new form of
yeah.
meditation because I wasn't someone who can. I don't love to like just sit and meditate. I also do yoga and stuff. So in my mind, that's also a form of meditation. So yeah, you don't have to sit there on those pillows like Tiffany. I mean, I look at people like you and I'm like, maybe one day I'll get there, but today is not that day.
And that is fine. Like it is finding, and I think that there's any creative endeavor, and even if you look at this as a creative endeavor, it is finding your thing, finding the
Yeah.
way that allows you to tap in, right? It's not always doing what everyone else prescribes, or you try it and you see if it works. And if it doesn't work, you move on to the next tip or the next thing and find your
Yeah.
thing until the thing happens and it sparks what you're looking for.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, Tiffany, so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I always appreciate our conversations, and congrats on the work that you're doing. Congrats again on the
Thank
TED Talk. I know
you.
that's a really big deal. And keep putting your beautiful essence out into the world and helping more people to rediscover who they are. It's a beautiful mission that you're on, and I'm so grateful to know you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait for us to get together in real life.
Yes, IRL. We will make it happen. All right,
Thank
awesome. Well,
you.
thank you so much for being part of this episode, and thank you so much for watching. And until next time, go create something.